Welcome to the 700 Club. The deadly Palestinian practice called pay to slay is in the news once again after the brutal killing of an Israeli father of 6.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu praised the United States ambassador to Israel after he said that the Palestinian Authority policy of paying terrorists is the reason there's no peace between Israel and the Palestinians. Chris Mitchell brings us the story from Jerusalem.
Nearly $3,000. That's what Palestinian killers of an Israeli rabbi will likely receive from their government under what's known as pay to slay. 35-year-old Rabbi Raziel Shevach died following a drive-by shooting near his home in Samaria. The terror attack drew quick condemnation from U.S. Ambassador David Friedman, who tweeted, "An Israeli father of 6 was killed last night in cold blood by Palestinian terrorists. Hamas praises the killers, and PA laws will provide them financial rewards. Look no further to why there is no peace."
I want to congratulate Ambassador Friedman, the American ambassador to Israel, who tweeted the truth, unvarnished, straightforward. The important thing is that Abbas's government is supporting the kind of murderers that murdered the father of 6.
Congress is also targeting the policy with the Taylor Force Act. The bill, which has already passed the House, would withhold U.S. tax dollars from the Palestinian Authority unless it stops paying those who kill Israelis.
Such people in our jails get $355 million a year, they and their families, from the Palestinian Authority. That is something that is untenable.
According to figures released by the Israel Defense Ministry, the rabbi's killers will likely receive a salary 5 times the average Palestinian wage for the rest of their lives. Palestinian Authority records show the more serious the crime, the higher the pay. For example, a terrorist sentence to 3 to 5 years receives $580 per month. For a sentence carrying 20 to 35 years in prison, the monthly pay grows to almost $3,000. There are also bonuses ranging from $87 for a married terrorist to $145 for an Israeli Arab carrying out an attack.
Funding and incentivizing murder doesn't exactly advance peace. Here's the principle. They're communicating to their people: kill an Israeli and get rich. Now, what kind of message does that send to impressionable Palestinian children?
President Trump also recently threatened to cut funding to another Palestinian institution, the United Nations Relief and Works Agency, or UNRWA.
It's not a question of defunding UNRWA, it's a question of replacing UNRWA with, after 70 years, with an agency that will actually address the real needs of real refugees.
Since there is an overall UN effort for millions of refugees worldwide, Netanyahu sees no reason for Palestinians to receive individual attention.
This will not have negative effects, it will have positive effects, because the perpetuation of the dream of bringing the descendants of refugees back to Jaffa is what sustains this conflict. UNRWA is part of the problem, not part of the solution.
Chris Mitchell, CBN News, Jerusalem.
Well, there's the truth of what's really happening and why there's no peace in the Middle East. When you are paying people to remain in refugee status, and it's now over 5 million are qualified to receive refugee aid. UNRWA has over 30,000 employees. And who's paying the salary? You and me. It's part of our tax dollars. The United States funds fully 1/3 of the budget of UNRWA. But right now, let's really focus in on this pay to slay program, because it's $350 million a year from the Palestinian Authority's budget. And guess who's paying for that? You and me. We're funding the Palestinian Authority, that level. That money is coming out of our pockets, and we're encouraging through those payments, through the Palestinian Authority, we're encouraging terrorism. We're encouraging murder on the streets of Israel. And it goes far more than just the payments. They celebrate these people. They name town squares. They name city streets in Ramallah after them. They name soccer stadiums and soccer teams after them. there's a whole glorification of the martyr, of the terrorist, of the murderer. And it's far more than money. And if you're looking to why there's no peace here, why there's never seems to be any agreement, it's because for 70 years they have held on to, we want to drive Israel into the sea. We don't want a two-state solution. And to say otherwise is denying the facts of what's really going on the ground. Now, we've got something for you. The Pay to Slay program, Congress has acted already through the Taylor Force Act, and the House of Representatives have already passed it, and we need to get it through the Senate. They're trying to tack it on to spending bills. It shouldn't be tacked on a spending bill. It should be an up and down vote on the Taylor Force Act, and if you want to get involved, we get that slide back up. We've got a number for you. This is the Capitol switchboard, 202-224-3121. What I want you to do is call that number and ask for your senators, and then let your voice be heard that you support the Taylor Force Act. You want to see it passed as soon as possible. There should be no partisanship on this. This needs to be a bipartisan effort. We need to stop terrorism in the Middle East, and you can be a part of it. Right before Christmas, we delivered people who had signed a petition to pass it to the Senate, and it was over 20,000 names. It's now over 25,000 names. So if you want to sign your name to that petition, we'll make sure that it gets to the Senate. All you have to do is call us, or you can go to cbnnews.com and sign the online petition. Let your voice be heard. We've got to get this act passed, and passed soon. Well, in other news, President Trump is back in the headlines, and he's responded to the controversy over his remarks about other countries. John Jessup has that story from our CBN News Bureau in Washington. John?
Thanks, Gordon. In a tweet earlier today, the president seemed to deny a statement that was attributed to him from a White House meeting on immigration yesterday. The controversy came as the Trump administration and Congress try to hammer out a deal on immigration to prevent a government shutdown, which, as Jenna Browder explains, could happen a week from today.
The White House is dealing with fallout after details of a private meeting between the president and several senators leaked to the media. When presented with an immigration deal that included restoring protections for immigrants from Haiti and some African countries, according to the people inside the room, the president asked, quote, "Why are we having all of these people from blank hole countries coming here?" The news sent shockwaves through Washington and drew immediate accusations of racism from Democrats.
This remark by the President of the United States smacks of blatant racism, the most odious and insidious racism masquerading poorly as immigration policy.
The White House didn't deny the president's remark, but issued a statement saying, quote, "Certain Washington politicians choose to fight for foreign countries, but President Trump will always fight for the American people," adding he'll only accept a deal that addresses the visa lottery system and chain migration. The president clarified his remarks Friday, tweeting, quote, "The language used by me at the DACA meeting was tough, but this was not the language used. What was really tough was the outlandish proposal made, a big setback for DACA." Today, senators are back at the drawing board.
We have no agreement with the president.
And House Minority Leader Nancy Pelosi also taking heat after this remark about the legislators working on an immigration reform deal.
The five white guys, I call them, you know. I said, "You going to open a hamburger stand next or what?"
Democratic Whip Steny Hoyer pushed back, saying in a statement to Politico, quote, "That comment is offensive. I am committed to ensuring Dreamers are protected, and I will welcome everyone to the table who wants to get this done." Despite the criticisms and name-calling, the federal government runs out of money in 1 week. Congressional Republicans need votes from Democrats to keep the government open, and several Democrats are threatening to withhold their votes if they can't reach an immigration deal. In Washington, Jenna Browder, CBN News.
Thank you, Jenna. Victims of human trafficking are speaking out here in Washington, calling on Congress to pass legislation they say would disrupt the growing online sex trafficking industry. Abigail Robertson brings us that story.
While prostitution is illegal in most of the country and strictly regulated in Nevada, there's nothing that prohibits the internet from advertising about it. More than 60 senators are working to close this legal loophole and bring survivors their day in court.
The more we dug into it, the more we realized that there was a federal law that protected these websites from the kind of prosecution you would normally expect and the kind of court cases that the victims would normally be able to bring.
The Stop Enabling Sex Traffickers Act, or SESTA, would prevent those who use the web to traffic adults and minors from escaping liability. Lauren Hirsch, a former New York City prosecutor, left her job to become an advocate for victims when she saw the shift to online trafficking and a shortage of laws regulating the new marketplace.
I guess for the last maybe 6.5 years, I've been sort of yelling at the computer screen saying, how is this possible? How is this legal? Watching young people being sold day in and day out and websites making huge amounts of money from it.
She says passing SESTA would help victims in their legal battles against websites like Backpage.com.
It gives survivors avenues to hold these websites that are exploiting kids or facilitating exploitation of kids. It gives survivors the avenue to hold these websites accountable.
The House passed a similar bill in November, but critics like Senator Portman say it does more harm than good by protecting tech companies over victims.
When people hear these stories and they understand what we're doing and how narrowly targeted this legislation is, it's not meant to interfere with the freedom of the internet. I think just the opposite. I think it's important that the internet police itself better.
The Senate could vote on the bill by the end of the month.
Senator Portman hopes once the bill passes the Senate, his colleagues in the House will consider strengthening their version of the legislation. Reporting from Capitol Hill, Abigail Robertson, CBN News.
Thanks, Abby. Well, children in Japan were the first to view CBN Superbook when it first was released back in 1981. Eventually, 8 million people a night watched the show on primetime television. The Japanese later, though, stopped the regular broadcast in the 1980s, but Superbook is back on Japanese national TV. Lucille Toulousan brings us that story.
People attending the Christmas Eve service is a tradition for Christians in Japan. And afterwards, in most Japanese churches, everyone stays and enjoys a meal together. A very important time of fellowship that they wouldn't miss, especially since many church members are the only Christians in their family. But for the Tamai family, this past Christmas Eve was extra special. Charlie Tamai shared how excited he was because after more than 2 decades, he could again watch Superbook, this time with his wife and children. It was in 1981 when CBN Superbook, known as Animated Parent and Child Theater, first aired on primetime television in Japan as part of an outreach.
I watched Superbook when I was a kid along with all the other kids. We would talk about it in school the next day. It was really amazing at that time. All the kids knew about the Bible because of that broadcast. So I think it is really great that it is on television again.
The Tamai family invited 3 other kids to their home, who together with their children watched the first episode of Superbook translated in Japanese. All their attention was focused on the story of the first Christmas. The Tamai children Yuri and Ku are happy their friends got to watch Superbook. It was the first time they learned the story of Christmas and the first time their friends heard the name of Jesus.
We are Christian, but I am concerned because what the Bible teaches is different from what is being taught in school. Our children are required to join festivals where they are taught dances that welcome ancestral spirits. I am glad that through Superbook, our children and their friends can learn about stories in the Bible and Christian values.
After watching the episode, the kids eagerly answered a quiz about the Superbook story. And when asked how they feel about the program,
I really like it a lot. We will tell our friends to watch Superbook.
Lucille Toulousan, CBN News.
Gordon, the series making an impact across generations.
Well, it's heartwarming for me to see that story. It's been a long time. The Superbook was originally developed for Japan back in the early 1980s as part of a campaign to make the Bible popular. It was the New Living Translation in Japanese. We partnered with them. We did the animation. They did the Bible publishing. And it worked. The Bible became a best-selling book, and the children knew the stories. And the unique thing in Japan is that watching cartoons is a family thing. Everyone gets together to watch. So to see it once again back in Japan, opening doors, and it's wonderful what's happening. And children will respond. People respond to the words of the Bible. They're living, they're powerful, and when characters are talking in Superbook, they're talking verses directly from the Bible. It's wonderful what's happened. Last year, I think the surveys are showing over 180 million viewers. It's just absolutely phenomenal. And we want to see it grow even more.
Well, it is great to see it return to Japan. It's also amazing how many countries it's in right now, translated into the language of the people. How many languages do you have now?
We got 43 right now, hopefully 55 by the end of the year. And then we want to take it to 500. Let's make an impact.